Today is Tuesday, June 11th. We'll tell you about the latest push to end the war in Gaza and how both sides are responding. Also, a dangerous heat wave in the U.S. that could break more records this week. And what experts have to say about a series of shark attacks in Florida. Plus, all about a new Alzheimer's drug, what's being called the most ambitious changes Apple has made to the iPhone in the past decade, and more big advancements in women's sports. We'll catch you up on those stories and even more news to know today next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. 8 months into fighting, and scrutiny is still growing over the war in Gaza. At the same time, support is building over one way to end it. The UN Security Council passed a ceasefire proposal drafted by the U.S. Now, this comes after 4 previous ceasefire resolutions failed, but this one had unanimous backing. It's an expanded version of the framework that the Biden administration laid out last week. It would begin with a complete ceasefire for 6 weeks. And during that time, Israeli forces would withdraw from populated areas, Hamas would release all women, children, elderly, and injured hostages, and Palestinians would be allowed to return to their homes while the Gaza Strip is flooded with humanitarian aid. Now, that would all continue as long as the two sides negotiated over Phase 2, which would include the permanent end to violence, full Israeli withdrawal, and return of all remaining hostages. Now, Hamas is saying it welcomes this resolution, though the Wall Street Journal is reporting it reviewed dozens of messages sent to ceasefire negotiators from the Hamas military leader in Gaza. The messages apparently make it clear he believes more fighting, more Palestinian deaths, and criticism of Israel actually helps Hamas, saying in one recent message, quote, "We have the Israelis right where we want them." Meanwhile, Israel has technically authorized this latest ceasefire deal too, but Israeli government officials have publicly objected to certain parts of the plan. And the last official word from Israel was that this war would not end until Hamas is destroyed. So U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the Middle East this week trying to build support. His meetings continue today. Hunter Biden's criminal case could wrap up any time now. Both sides have rested their cases and the jury has started to deliberate. They'll be considering days of deeply personal testimony that prosecutors say prove their allegations that Hunter lied when he claimed to be drug-free on an application to buy a gun. Still, his defense team argues Hunter bought the gun while in recovery and that prosecutors could not prove otherwise. The president's son did get the chance to testify in his own defense yesterday, though he decided not to take it. And now it's up to the jury to decide his fate. If he's found guilty, Hunter Biden could face up to 25 years in prison. Though as a first-time offender, it's likely he would face a much lighter sentence. Millions of Americans are dealing with potentially dangerous weather this week, starting with extreme heat. A brutal heat wave has been sitting over the Southwest for a while now, breaking temperature records last week. Well, this week, it will start to expand into the central U.S. It's expected to bring triple-digit temps to states like Kansas and Colorado by the end of the week. While it might also get even hotter across parts of California and Arizona. In fact, the National Weather Service says California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas will all likely experience triple-digit temperatures through the weekend. And most of the East Coast is in for temps in the 90s before the week is out. Meanwhile, storms are expected to bring heavy rain to south and central Florida today, and they could continue for days, with some areas getting more than a foot of rain. So meteorologists warn there could be flooding. That said, it could also bring relief in the face of an ongoing drought. Well, there are some new concerns about shark attacks in the wake of recent incidents in the Florida Panhandle. 2 attacks left people badly hurt in the span of just an hour and a half. Still, authorities say beachgoers should not be overly worried that this does not happen that often. In fact, data shows between 1990 and 2006, more people died from falling into a hole on the beach than from shark attacks. The number of attacks did go up a little bit last year, but they're actually down some this year. Experts say in Florida, it's likely the sharks were feeding off fish in the warm waters and people just happened to be in their way. So they suggest taking a break from swimming if you see a bunch of little fish jumping out of the water close to the shore, that it's typically a sign something is chasing them and it could be a shark. The Port of Baltimore's main shipping channel is finally fully reopened. A major cleanup effort has been underway since March when a container ship knocked down the Francis Scott Key Bridge. But now that it's wrapped up, companies will be able to fully return to moving massive shiploads of cars, tractors, containers, and bulk materials like coal through Baltimore, just like they had done before the collapse. Economists say disruptions have cost the Baltimore region's economy about $1.2 billion. But the channel was actually able to open back up sooner than many officials expected, and the economic impact has not been as bad as many people feared. Baltimore's mayor credited the cooperation from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard, and officials from federal, state, county, and city governments. Now the hope is they can rebuild the bridge by 2028. We have more news for you still coming up. But first, this episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. I know I can't be my best at any other part of my life if I'm in pain or not feeling well. That's why I keep up with the annual doctor's appointments for myself and my family, and I seek out the right specialist if I'm having an unexpected issue. And while it's a top priority, I know healthcare can get expensive. So finding doctors that take my insurance is so important. And that's why I appreciate ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Yes, not only is it free, but it also helps me quickly and easily find a variety of credible doctors who have offices nearby, take my insurance, and treat basically any condition I've looked for. And because I do have high standards, I always check out ZocDoc's verified reviews from actual real patients. Check out ZocDoc to find a doctor who makes you feel comfortable, listens, and most of all, works with you to prioritize your health. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. And thanks to our sponsor, CrunchLabs. CrunchLabs BuildBox is a STEM subscription where your kids get a really fun build-it-yourself toy in the mail. I actually put one of them together with my 3-year-old son since he always loves to see how things work. So even though we had to do it as a team because he's still too young to do it on his own, we both loved this project together and had fun playing with the final creation at the end. Older kids can build this on their own, and parents, that will of course make your life easier as you get a little time to yourself to get things done or relax. In fact, this summer, Camp CrunchLabs is perfect for kids around 8 and older. It's a virtual summer camp where kids get 12 build-it-yourself toys with one shipped every week. It's going to get your kids thinking like little engineers and showing off their newly built toys to their friends. They also get access to exclusive videos and weekly challenges. So last year, more than 1 million people tuned in each week to watch camp and try their luck at these challenges. So get this limited Camp CrunchLabs subscription, and you get 2 boxes free, which is a $60 value. Simply go to crunchlabs.com/newsworthy to sign your kids up for Camp CrunchLabs today. Again, get 2 boxes free when you sign your kiddos up for Camp CrunchLabs at crunchlabs.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. This could be a big milestone for the millions of Americans dealing with Alzheimer's. A panel of independent advisors to the FDA voted unanimously to recommend the second experimental drug for the disease. It's called donanemab, and in trials it was shown to have benefits. It slowed cognitive decline, at least modestly, in patients in the early stage of Alzheimer's. The thing is, though, experts have questioned whether patients and their families will notice a change from taking the medicine, since they point out there will be no way of knowing how the disease would have progressed without it. The only way to know in the trial was to compare a group of people taking the drug to a group of people taking a placebo. And there are some serious safety risks like swelling and bleeding in the brain. Still, the committee decided that even a modest benefit can be worthwhile and outweigh the risks. The FDA usually follows the panel's advice, but not always. At this point, Alzheimer's still has no cure and affects about 6.5 million Americans. As expected, Apple announced its biggest jump yet into the world of artificial intelligence, or as the tech giant calls it, Apple Intelligence. Apple says it'll be using it to improve Siri, offer writing tips, create images, and write software code. For example, AI within Mail will be able to sort and summarize messages or reply to emails. And Apple announced it's going to be integrating ChatGPT into its systems. So if Siri is asked something especially challenging, it might ask users if they'd rather get a response from ChatGPT. As for the next Apple operating systems, they're supposed to be more customizable. Like you'll be able to schedule a message to send, rearrange home screen apps, and create custom emoji. And Apple is finally supporting a messaging standard that will allow for better sharing of photos and videos with non-Apple devices. Of course, those are just a few examples of the many upgrades coming over the next year. Many others were announced yesterday, and a lot more will be coming since this developers conference event lasts through Friday. Delta is bringing a new class of flying to more flights. The airline announced people traveling between LAX in Los Angeles and New York's JFK Airport will be able to pay for upgrades to premium economy starting this fall. Delta and some other airlines already offer premium economy on longer, mostly international flights, but this is the first time Delta is offering it on transcontinental flights. Premium economy includes some extra legroom, amenities kits, noise-canceling headphones, a full meal, and a blanket, though the seats can cost twice as much as standard coach for some flights. Still, the demand is apparently there. Delta and rivals like United have said they're focusing on upselling perks like premium seating, upgraded lounges, and more to capitalize on higher-spending travelers. JetBlue also says this year it plans to emphasize routes that offer what it calls its Mint business class cabin. And as CNBC reports, even Southwest is considering a more expensive designated seat on its planes. All this comes as overall airfare profits are going down, but wealthy customers are expected to keep on spending. Delta says it plans to roll out premium economy on even more routes soon. Women's basketball keeps becoming more and more popular. The WNBA is now averaging about 1.3 million viewers per game, tripling last season's average. Not only that, but more people are going to watch WNBA teams in person. About 400,000 fans attended games last month, the most people who've attended first-month games in 26 years. The WNBA attributes much of its new popularity to powerful rookies like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Granted, a lot more fans are still watching men's sports, but the men's games aren't really seeing much of a boost by historical standards. The first game of the NBA Finals brought in fewer than 11 million viewers. Outside of the COVID seasons, the last time there was an opening game with an audience that small was in 2007. That said, there was some rebound for Game 2, with 14 million viewers tuning in to watch the Celtics versus the Mavericks. Game 3 is happening tomorrow night. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. Today's trivia question is, who was the first American woman in space? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. As for last week's trivia question, what was the first web browser on Apple's Mac computer? The answer is Samba, also known as Mac WWW. Version 1.0 launched in 1993, and by 1994, it was considered obsolete. And that's because competitors like Mosaic and MacWeb had more features like support for sound, bookmarks, and history files. There have actually been dozens of web browsers that have come out over the years. These days, the most popular ones are Google Chrome and Apple Safari. Thank you so much for listening and following us in your favorite podcast app. And speaking of podcast apps, if you're not thrilled with the one you use now, definitely check out Castro. I'm partnering with Castro this month, and I can tell you, especially if you have an iPhone and you listen to more than one podcast, Castro makes it super easy to manage lots of shows and episodes. For example, since I Know the Newsworthy is, of course, one of your favorite shows, Castro will automatically download the latest episodes and have it ready for you in what's called the queue. But maybe you only like to listen occasionally to another pod? Well, Castro will add those to the inbox area that you can just browse and clear out later. You can also change playback speed or production value, share episodes easily, and more. So check out Castro in the Apple App Store. We'll be back tomorrow with more news you need to know. Until then, have a great day.